The anatomy of a personal confrontation. Non-law enforcement officer. Just your regular civilian getting into some type of a conflict. Could be a physical fight, etc. This is the breakdown. If your system doesn't address or doesn't cover all of this, all of these components, then you're going to have areas where you're going to have to incorporate. So let's get to it. It all starts out with a potential threat. It could be somebody at the mall approaching you, somebody in the parking lot, etc. Threat, you ask yourself, is it imminent? Is this going to happen? Is this real? Are you imagining, etc.? If you're not sure, then you're going to kind of cycle through to these types of investigative responses. You might comply with the threat or potential threat. Some guy's asking for money and approaches you for a $5 bill for a cup of tea or something. Maybe it's some incident going on where you can kind of de-escalate it, get everybody to chill out, or you assert yourself, you tell everybody to cool out, the cops are on the way, etc. If the conflict's not resolved and you kind of cycle through that, you're not sure, you use some verbal discussion, you try to inquire, etc. In the end, you want to resolve the conflict without any physical altercation, and that ends the threat. Now, if you come to that same threat and you're thinking, this is real, this guy, all of a sudden he says, give me your money. And basically you come down the right side of this on the yes angle here. You're either going to escape, you're going to deter, and let's talk about these two before I jump to the third option. If you escape and it's successful, then we end up here, where's where we want. The conflict is ended. However, if it's not a successful escape, then you're going to physically engage. Okay, that means you've decided that you've got to, in your mind it's happening very quickly, you decide that you're going to have to do something about it. So you're either going to strike first, or the attacker, you wait for the attacker to strike first, in which case we're calling that a reflexive defensive response. Okay, you follow up and you resolve the conflict. Hopefully you end up victorious or successful, able to walk home. And then that ends the conflict. Now, I added this other bullet here, this passive setup. Oh yeah, and check out potential use of weapons. Passive setup. This is where you know the threat, you have a potential threat, it's happening. You're not going to escape. You're not going to try and deter yet, because deter is a different skill set. But you're going to decide to take this guy out, or maybe set up for an escape. So you kind of, basically you're faking him out. It requires some acting skills. It requires understanding a passive setup. You build into this whole process here the picture that says you're the good guy, and you're a fearful good guy, and he's the bad guy. This way, if there's witnesses, they look at you doing your passive setup, and maybe we'll get some videos of how to do this. There's a lot out there already. Look under de-escalation stance, etc. And then you basically, you can sucker punch him, or you get the guy's got a gun, he's pointing at your head, you pull out your gun quicker than him in some, magical way, and you shoot. You physically engage. You're either going to strike first, or you're going to wait for some type of an action on his part and react to it. So the deter piece is what most of us, I think, are familiar with. You have a potential threat, it's imminent, and then you puff up and get into a fighting stance. You try to deter, or you start yelling at the person, trying to intimidate. And then obviously there's the escape. So in a nutshell, every conflict we go through goes through this type of this life cycle here, and each area here has a particular type of training that's involved. Real quickly, just bear with me a second here. Real quickly, if you draw a line right here, everything to the left is the non-physical part, or the pre-contact part, and everything to the right is the contact part, where you actually get physical with the person or with the individual. And then after all is said and done, there's the post-contact part, the legal system. Everything you do should add up or move towards a successful self-defense where you're successful in the pre-contact, in which case you de-escalate, nothing happens, or if you engage in contact, you end up terminating the threat. And when all said and done, if this goes to the cops, goes to the newspapers, where they're using a gun, or you know, it involves the death or injury of the attacker, you want to make sure you're set up for the legal system, winning in the legal system, so that you go home, you don't go broke. You want to make sure you don't go to jail. You want to mitigate your costs, etc. And when you have an awareness of all that's required to be successful throughout all these phases, you really just reach the conclusion that it's better to avoid any type of confrontation whatsoever. So train hard, be prepared, and that should kind of prompt you to stay out of trouble. What else? Simpler way to say it.